did all week down in Tampa, and you see the first-round talent. Now, the biggest question will be what happened off the field with that whole situation. And talking to him, I think he was just a guy that got in too deep and was put in a bad situation, and he was just so freaked out that, he couldn't get out of it. So I think that was a one-time thing. I think he's a good guy, and on the field, he definitely has first-round talent.
Yes, indeed. Well, hey, Emory, thank you as always, my brother. Always chopping wood, bringing the knowledge and the noise, man. So we got to do it again real soon. For agency time, draft time, we know we're looking for you for all the information.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. Again, always keep chopping wood, and thank you for having me all.
Yes, indeed. That was my man, Emory Hunt. FootballGamePlan.com. Coming up next, Howard Beck Bleacher Report on the Bossman Show with John Beckler.
For all your photo, video, and voiceover needs, check out the fine folks at Blueberry Productions. They will take good care of you. If you don't believe me, you can see for yourself. Check out their work at blueberryproductions.tv, the Facebook page, Blueberry Productions, also a Vimeo page, a YouTube page, and it's Blueberry, BLUBERRY, Prod on Twitter. Check them out today. Blueberry Productions, great people, great work, great service. Hip-hop fans, I got a great album for you. The debut album from Family Grind ENT, True Speech and 313 Fresh. We're going to give you 2 discs, 33 songs of pure, genuine hip-hop. Albums available on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, illstreetrex.com, and streaming live right now on Rhapsody, Beats Music, Spotify, Xbox Music, Slacker Radio, and SoundCloud. Check them out today. True Speech and 313 Fresh. Family Grind ENT. Believe in it. Get it.
And welcome back to the Joy of the Bossman Show with John Beckler. We was just joined by Emory Hunt of FootballGamePlan.com. Now we're joined by a Bleacher Report writer, NBA writer is that, Howard Beck. Howard, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, thanks.
No doubt. Good to have you on. First question I got for you for the Hawks, who we cover the most. Their staff clinch coaching the Eastern Conference All-Stars on Wednesday night over Indiana. What is it in your mind that's been essential factors that have made the Hawks get off this great start being 35-8, and do you see them continuing this run under Coach Bud going forward?
Yeah, it's funny. I think people slept on the Hawks for a number of reasons. One, the injury to Horford and others last year, really kind of made everybody, it was easy to forget them. They were great up until Horford's injury. They were one of the top teams in the East a year ago before everything kind of fell apart with injuries. And so there was always a decent core there, but I just think that, this is one of those seasons where you couldn't necessarily see it coming. You knew there was a great, combination with Horford and Millsap up front. You knew that Jeff Teague had been making steady progress. But when a guy like Teague especially makes a big leap, and, role players all kind of find their niches, and everybody, does stay healthy and it all starts to fit, it's hard to see that coming a lot of times. And obviously, look, everybody was so focused on Chicago having added Pau Gasol and some others there, and Derrick Rose's return. Everyone was so focused, obviously, on Cleveland and LeBron's return. Toronto and Washington had made such strides last year that you kind of thought that the top of the East was set. And, there's no one explanation for what's going on with the Hawks, but credit to Mike Budenholzer for having very successfully instilled that Spurs-type mentality there where those guys really play for each other offensively and defensively. They are just a machine, especially, at the offensive end of the court where they are doing the Spurs thing of passing up good shots for great shots, and their assist percentage is through the roof. And it's great to see that model can be effective somewhere other than San Antonio. And, I think, anybody who's been doubting it, saying, well, they don't have stars there, so they can't possibly sustain this. Well, we're past the halfway point of the season. I think it's, time at this point to just kind of acknowledge they really are this good.
Now, Howard, how much of a role do you think that the I would say turmoil in the front office of the Atlanta Hawks played into their being slept on a little bit? I mean, when you have some of the things that were happening within that front office and the negative aspects of what was happening with Danny Ferry and the ownership group there, did that play a role, do you think, in people kind of sleeping on them and not being able to see past that and thinking maybe that situation was going to cause them to have a major disruption in their season?
I think that even if none of that had happened, they would have been a little bit of an afterthought, just because, it's hard to get a gauge on a team that, granted, they were, really impressive in the playoffs with just what was left of them. Had they been at full strength, obviously, maybe a whole different story. So you could always see the fight in that team. And so, I still think that competitively it was the harder, or the bigger reason for why we didn't see this coming. That they didn't have a great season. We know it was because of injury, but still, you don't know what to make of the team when you haven't seen them at full strength all the way through a season and into the playoffs, and to give you that sense that, okay, this is what their trajectory is. We saw that from Washington and Toronto with their breakthrough seasons, and so you got, okay, they're coming back. They both had reinforcements. You can see the trajectory there. It was hard to see the Hawks' trajectory, but I think you raise a valid point there, which is that when there starts to become, when the off-court turmoil starts to creep in, it does kind of give this impression that this is a franchise in disarray. And that can filter down. People think that, well, the basketball is separate from front office politics or anything else. These things do have a way of leaching into the everyday because, players sense the instability. They're affected by it in subtle ways. And so, again, credit to Mike Budenholzer for, creating the environment where they're insulated from that. He's taken over as the interim GM as well. And, they've been able to, I don't know if that galvanized them some. I'm sure it did, especially because of the nature of the controversy. I'm sure that pulled, the team together that much more. But, yeah, I think you're right. I think among the reasons people might have slept on is that it just did seem like this was a franchise in disarray.
And Howard, with Toronto, Washington, Chicago, Cleveland, or the Hawks, do you feel that they're the best team in the East right now and just moving forward in potential matchups that can be uncomfortable for the Hawks in the playoffs and down the stretch? What do you feel those would be?
Yeah, it's we got half a season to go here, and in that next half season, the things I'm curious about, Toronto got off to a good start, but defensively they haven't quite been there, and they had to overcome, having lost DeMar DeRozan for whatever it was, a month or so. They're going to be stronger in the second half, I would presume. Chicago, one guy after another. Joakim Noah's out right now. Rose had missed time. Gibson had missed time. Dunleavy's missed time. They're still adjusting, and I expect the Bulls are going to be better in the second half of the season. And, everybody's got their eyes on the Cavaliers. Who expected that at the midway point they would have already slipped below 500? I mean, they've climbed back over again, but that they would even be hovering near 500, I think is stunning to most people. But LeBron took his break. He's healthier now. They've had this much time to try to get acclimated with all these pieces, but they're incorporating 3 more players with Mozgov, J.R. Smith, and Iman Shumpert. So there are teams that should be better in the second half, and I'm not saying the Hawks come back to earth. I just think that some of these other teams should be as strong or stronger than they had been, and I don't expect that the Hawks will coast all the way to the finish here as the number 1 seed. I expect there's going to be some jockeying between all the teams I mentioned, all the way down the stretch there. But that's one of the great things about this season in both the East and the West. Most years by now, we think that the championship is down to about 3-4 teams at the most. And right now, you can't make an airtight case for anybody coming out of either conference. You can't make an airtight case even for which 2 teams are going to be in either conference finals. It's completely, wide open as we sit here at the midway point.
And Howard, looking ahead to free agency for the Hawks with Paul Millsap and DeMar Carroll, could this be the Hawks' one shot to make a deep run? And do you see the Hawks going on and spending the money to keep both Carroll and Millsap with the salary cap spike expected to come in 2016?
It's interesting. To your first question, do they have enough there to make a run? I think all of us still fall into the trap of, well, where's the star power? Where's the Kevin Durant, or the, LeBron James or Dirk Nowitzki type who's going to carry you and make all the big shots, in a tight game. So I think there's still a sense that, do the Hawks lack that one ultra dynamic player? And maybe Jeff Teague is that guy, but, he's still young and not with a lot of playoff experience. But you usually, you're looking at them and you're thinking, okay, there's enough depth. There's enough scoring, but they've found a way to do this. They do have the formula that works. So will it work through several rounds of playoffs against ultra talented teams that have your more traditional superstars? We'll see. Can they still add though? Yeah. Look, this is a team that ever since Danny Ferry got there, and credit to Ferry for having done this. He got rid of Marvin Williams and Joe Johnson and their contracts. He started basically loosening up the payroll to give them the flexibility to go get a Millsap, to be able to keep guys, to manage this in a sustained way, the way that the Spurs do, where you don't hit the luxury tax unless you absolutely have to. You keep all your flexibility and your cap exceptions. So I think what they've created is a sustainable model now where if an opportunity is there to snatch a big-time free agent or make a trade for one, they've got those avenues open. I think they have all their picks, and they're in great position too because they've still got a couple of swaps with the Nets coming from the Joe Johnson trade. So they're going to get the Nets pick this year, and if the Nets fall out of the playoffs, suddenly the Hawks have a lottery pick in addition to being one of the best teams in the league. So they've done a great job of setting themselves up. It's going to be tough in 16 when the cap leaps possibly up to $90 million because every team in the league all of a sudden is going to have cap room. And, the advantage of certain markets at times is like, well, we're the ones that have the cap room, so this is where, the free agents are going to have to come knocking. When everyone has cap room, it's going to be much trickier. Suddenly it's wide open. Guys might, do they head toward the glamour markets? Do they head for, LA and New York? And, not that Atlanta's not an attractive destination. Players love Atlanta, but it hasn't, often been a big-time destination for marquee free agents for whatever reason.
Now, Howard, switching it up, over to the Western Conference, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Memphis Grizzlies. They're currently second in the West at 30-12. They just acquired Jeff Green via trade, and I'm wondering what you think that trade does as it pertains to the Western Conference hierarchy and the playoffs. Where do you think that move puts the Grizzlies? Obviously, we feel it's going to help them a bit, but what do you see playing out in the West as far as the playoffs are concerned with the Grizzlies in mind?
Well, this is a team that obviously has been one of the best defensive teams for the last several years here, but they've often had trouble scoring. They just haven't had enough guys out there who can make a shot and stretch the defense and maybe create for themselves a little bit. Jeff Green's, he's a skilled player. I mean, you know, he's long, he can shoot the three.